Hello, my name is Daniel Kilkelly, and this is my presentation on zines for LIS 7750, Intro to Archives and Special Collections. To start with, what is a zine? The word zine comes from a portmanteau of the words fan and magazine, or fanzine, which is shortened to just zine. And there's a lot of variety with what constitutes a zine, but they tend to have these things in common. Number one, zines are self-published, and the creator doesn't have to answer to anyone, as opposed to traditionally published or blogs. Number two, zines have a small print run, typically less than 1,000 copies, and are self-distributed. Number three, zines are motivated by self-expression rather than money. Some people do sell their zines, but that's not the primary motivator. Number four, zines are outside of the mainstream and appeal to a niche audience or marginalized groups. And number five, zines are low budget. You don't really need any special equipment or a lot of money to make zines. So what are the origins of zines? If you take the previous slide into account, you could technically consider Martin Luther nailing his 95 Theses to the wall or door of a church as the first zine. But zines as we know them today popped up in the 1930s. They became popular at science fiction conventions where they were given away or traded. An example of that is the Comet. So zines in science fiction conventions tended to have stories or commentary on popular media, or sometimes fans would write in and those letters would be published in the zines. The creation of zines was made easier by the invention of Xeroxing or photocopying. Zines are popular among marginalized communities who might otherwise face barriers to traditional publishing. Queer zines began to pop up in the 40s, like Vice Versa in 1947 by Lisa Ben, which is an anagram for lesbian. AIDS activism in the 1980s used a lot of zines because the government was kind of failing to contain AIDS. Zines were used to spread information and also to criticize the government. There are also feminist zines like the Riot Girl movement's zine Slant. Zines in libraries. So there are some academic libraries that have significant zine collections. Some of them include Barnard College, Bowling Green State University, Duke University, Harvard University, Michigan State University, and Reed College. Some of these institutions host zine making workshops and teach about the history of zine culture. So these academic libraries are attempting to legitimize zines to researchers, and they do kind of represent what was going on in modern culture at a particular time and place. But then that begs the question, do zines need legitimacy? The whole point of zines is to kind of be outside of the mainstream and to be ephemeral. For collection and preservation of zines, there are some obstacles for libraries that attempt to do this. For one, collecting. With small print runs and zines being hard to find, these academic libraries that collect zines oftentimes have to rely on donations. It can also be difficult to sort through all the donations because a lot of these academic libraries have a particular subject, but oftentimes will get large donations that have a lot of zines. Cataloging can be difficult. How do you categorize a zine? Is it the same thing as a serial? Is it its own category? There's not really a standard approach. And the publication of zines can be inconsistent. There can be a long time between publications, or publication can just stop if the author decides to stop creating them. Um, and sometimes the title can change from zine to zine. Then there's the question of access. Should zines be in open or closed stacks? Should they be available for reading? Should they be available for checkout? For shelving, there's the issue of how to organize zines. Do you organize them by title, by author, by subject? It can also be difficult to look through them because they're often so small and the spines are so thin, you can't really use spine labels. So how do you display them? How do you have people browse through zines? Then there's preservation. Do you have zines in climate controlled storage? Do you digitize zines? And then digitizing brings up the issue of, is this in what the original author intended? Some authors never intended for their zines to be preserved. And that brings us to our discussion questions. Number one, what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of creating zines versus traditional publishing or blogs? Number two, how would you catalog, preserve, or provide access to a collection of zines in a library or archive? Number three, does preserving or digitizing zines go against their ephemeral nature? Should any special considerations be made when archiving zines? And these are my sources. Thank you so much for watching.